Hello and welcome to Three Keys of My Success, part of the For Love of Chiropractic podcast series. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. On today's show, I get to speak with another amazingly successful doctor. And here's who he is.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Paul Reed in the Pacific Northwest. Been at it 28 plus years, scaled and exited out of 5 clinics. Have host and run one of the Pacific Northwest's largest chiropractic clinics in ChiroFEST. Stoked to be able to serve and help you create your next best in your life and practice.
Hello and welcome to Secrets of My Success, part of For the Love of Chiropractic podcast series. On each episode, I'll be interviewing one highly successful doctor or business person, asking them what are their 3 keys of success or secrets they've used to make themselves so highly successful. So let's get started with today's show. As I said in the introduction, today I have the opportunity to speak with Dr. Paul Reed. Paul, are you there?
I am here, Doc. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And you had said in the intro that you've been practicing for over 28 years. Now, remind me, where'd you go to school?
You know, I went to the what is now called the University of Western States, but it was Western States Chiropractic College way back.
Awesome. And I know that was a while ago. So what first got you into chiropractic?
You know, I had my first chiropractic adjustment when I was in 8th grade following a sports injury. Dad took me to the chiro to get checked post injury, and man, I didn't know what it was at the time, but whatever that doc did, I do now, obviously, but whatever that doc did at that time, you know, I later came to understand reconnected man the physical to man the spiritual, and I'm like, I want to do that when I'm done with my sports career, and so man, like literally course corrected what I wanted to become again, and knew at that minute as an 8th grader, 13-year-old, that I wanted to be a chiropractor moving forward. So
that's really cool. So obviously went to college, went to chiropractic school, got out of school. Yeah. What did that look like when you got out of school?
Oh man, I think unlike what a lot of students, DCs to be today do, my wife and I felt like let's embrace the pain of not having any money from the beginning, since we don't already, and opened up, within a few months of graduating, opened up my first location and hired a coach before I did any of that stuff. So I found somebody that I aligned with that could help me shorten my learning curve. He had prepaid the dummy tax to help me get more successful faster. Anyhow, hired a coach, found a location, committed to the process, and opened up and started serving folks in my community right from the get-go.
Awesome. And then when you open the office, and I know you've opened multiple offices along the way, what makes your brand of chiropractic unique? What separates your offices from the other offices?
And I wouldn't say that we were unique, but I would say that we were highly principled and stuck to the original vision of detecting and correcting subluxations and setting the nervous system free and allowing those folks to express as much potential as God had given inside their body. And so, yeah, we, are from the beginning, while we over time grew and progressed and added in some active rehab to, again, facilitate healing. But we were all about, what I like to say and call from the womb to the tomb and everywhere in between. And so we got the message out about everybody with a spine, which is everybody should have that spine and nervous system checked for subluxations. And then once those subluxations are corrected, support and maintain that spinal position for optimal nervous system function performance for a lifetime.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, why wouldn't you want your body being as close to 100% as possible for as long as possible?
Yay and amen.
It's amazing how many of our colleagues either don't see it or don't speak it to share with their patients.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate fact that there's not every chiropractor, and some of that we're in a crossroads with some of the schools, but it's important that those of us that do understand and know and practice and live the quote unquote chiropractic lifestyle, that we are educating, informing, and supporting those young doctors and students, and encouraging them to seek out what we founded as and we're founded as, and maintain that principle.
And that's why we're here today, doing what we're doing.
Yeah, awesome.
So, and I know you said that when you first got out of school, you shortened the learning curve and hired a coach that you vibed with, and obviously made a huge difference. And you've been moving along. So, and then my understanding is you have also helped lots and lots of docs also find their way to success.
Yeah, that's, again, is natural progression or transition. With building and scaling those 5 clinics and then exited, looking for something to do. I had coached years ago in the middle of my career, and just didn't feel like I could give clients enough attention they needed to really succeed. And so my means that way to reach the profession and support and maintain doc success was through ChiroFEST. So we're coming up on year 15 or 16 with that event here in September. But the last 2 years I've transitioned just to mentoring and coaching and supporting docs, whether it's 3 months in to 30 years in, no matter where they're at in their journey, to really helping them refine who they are and become the best version of themselves, so that they can express that through their clinic and impact and change their communities.
Right. And I absolutely love that. And you just briefly glanced over ChiroFEST. I want to double back on that in a couple minutes. But before we do that, I got to ask you, so with the docs that you've coached, with the success that you created with your 5 clinics, so I want to ask you, what would you tell a doc? What would you want to tell the world? These are the 3 keys of success that I think you need to focus on. Let's talk about them one at a time and really dig in a little bit.
Yeah, I think, honestly, first and foremost, I think a lot of students that I've interviewed and talked to, and even young doctors, really haven't defined who they want to be and how they want to serve their communities. And so I think first and foremost, you have to get clarity on who you want to be. Again, as you and I know, deep into our careers, that fuzzy targets never get hit. So until you have that vision, right, of who you want to be, you're just going to not necessarily flounder, but you're not going to feel content. You're not going to have the necessary drive to do the things. And so I think first and foremost, above all, somebody's got to get clarity on what they want their practice to look like, smell like, sound like, how they want to contribute to that practice members or potential practice members' health, to correcting it, to supporting it and maintaining it. So first and foremost, docs, you have to get clarity on who you want to be as a practitioner, and more importantly, as a human being, right? If we don't have clarity on who we are and what we want to be, fuzzy targets won't get hit. And I'm an advocate of when the mechanism's clear, when the vision's clear, the mechanism will appear. And so you really got to get vision on who you want to be as a chiropractor, first and foremost.
And I absolutely agree with that. I love everything you're saying. So when a doc says, well, I got this vision, I think I know who I want to be, and I think I know what I want to do, as they're heading down that road, and they have to say, well, that's not exactly what I thought. I want to change course. Are they allowed to do that?
100%. Yeah. And again, we all evolve and grow. And my vision of, my first practice that I opened, by the time I exited was completely, its principle was the same, right? Our means of what we were doing and why we were doing it was the same, but how we delivered it, and how we communicated it grew and changed as I evolved in my maturity, my certainty of being a chiropractor. And so, yes, you're going to grow and mature and go through different, quote unquote, seasons of life, seasons of practice. And so being open and willing to not move away from your core, right? Because again, our core principles of who we are is really who we are. And if we move away from that, then we're out of congruence. And when there's incongruence, there's, over time, there's breakdown, destruction, stress, all of the things. But it's okay to grow and evolve on how you want to achieve your core principles as being a practitioner, in my opinion.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're absolutely right. I just needed to hear you say it, Frank. That's why I asked the question. So if vision is number one, and obviously, clarity of that vision, crystal clear vision, moves you forward. What's number 2?
Yeah, and then this is where you outline the work. And so really, quote unquote, reverse engineering every component, first and foremost, of who you need to be to drive those desired outcomes, and then switching it to the business / practice and reverse engineering what the practice looks like. And so again, if there's not congruency with vision and goal, then the desired outcome's not going to happen. So perfect example where I see a lot of incongruence is docs say, hey, I want to serve X amount of practice members per week, per day, per month, whatever it might be. But then when you do a deep dive and analyze systems and processes, those systems and processes aren't aligned or congruent with their ability to execute on their desired state. And so then what I mean by that is like, hey, if I want to, see 100 a week, 200 a week, 300 a week, but my processes are allowing me to see 50 a week, there's an incongruence. And so you have to, again, start with the end in mind. I want to get to here. And then what does my every minute of every day with every process need to look like in order for me to achieve that desired state? And the same thing personally, right? Are your personal habits aligned with driving your desired outcomes in your business? And so I think that the next most important thing, again, is really reverse engineering. First, who and foremost, you need to be personally, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, financially, to drive your outcomes. And then what does the practice need to look like in order to achieve that thing within the systems and processes? How you do a day one, how you do a day two, what your daily adjustment looks like, what your re-exams look like, all of the things that build and drive the outcomes that you want in your business.
So I got to ask another question because again, I love everything you're saying. What do you say to the doc that says, I really want to help and serve, and I really want to get to know my patients and spend a lot of time with my patients?
Yeah, well, again, it's if that's the style of practice they want to have, then they are more than welcome to practice how they want to practice. But if if they're saying at the same time they want to serve amount of people outside the number or outside what that congruence would allow, then they need to reevaluate their mission, their true mission and their true purpose, and then reassess who they need to be and how they need to practice in order to drive those outcomes. So that's not bad to serve that. But again, if you look at our principles, checking it, detecting it, subluxation, removing it shouldn't take more than a couple minutes, not hours.
Right.
So again, it comes back to alignment.
Right. One of the things that I've shared with docs over so many years is when they say things like that, I'll say, well, how long do you want to spend in your dentist's office?
Yeah, right.
I love my dentist. She is awesome. Her dad was great. He was a dentist. Her kids are now dentists, and they're phenomenal. And I love them. I respect them. I refer people to them all the time. I want to be in and out of the dentist office as fast as possible. Yep. Do a great job. Be friendly. Be polite. Be professional. Do what needs to be done, and throw me out the door.
Yep. Another training scenario I do with some of my docs is when they run into that incongruence personally, I usually ask them, hey, how long do you spend checking and adjusting your spouse? Mm-hmm. And most of their time, like, only a couple minutes. I'm like, so your spouse is less important to you than your patients? And I'm like, no. Like, exactly. So incongruence. So that you should not be adjusting your practice members any different than you're checking and adjusting your family. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So true. Yeah. So true. So we've talked about vision. We've talked about re-engineering and reverse engineering. What's number 3?
Man, plain and simple, key to success is action, right? And so really what I found in my, almost 20 years of mentoring, coaching, speaking, traveling, getting to know thousands of chiropractors is too many of them stop. And so really the next ticket is really to stop stopping. Your success is a direct reflection of the amount of action that you continuously take. Success is boring, but you have to make sure that you're following through in all things. And I think we as chiropractors, a lot of us are squirrels. We get bright, shiny objects, and we go a different direction, and we get pattern interrupted and lose our focus. And so it's important that you double down on who you are and continue to take massive action towards that desired state. Again, it's okay to pivot on the actions that you're doing, but keep on keeping on, as BJ liked to say. And we have a tendency to look for a shorter, easier path, and we get off the one that we started on without executing on that one first. And so really just getting across the finish line with each action step before you move on to the next thing. That over time, docs again ask me, Paul, how did you build the 5 practices? How were you debt free before you're 50? How did you do like all this stuff? And I'm like, I freaking did the work. Really, there's no science to it. Yes, I was strategic and thought through some things to make good decisions. But at the end of the day, I got up and did work. And that's where I think a lot of business owners just think that things should come to them. And that's not the way it's designed. Like, you have to get up and work. And yes, there's a different space as you get into practice and your business flows, and it starts to autopilot itself with the proper systems and processes. So you don't have to put as much intention in it. But again, it's just like pushing a car, right? If you got behind that car and got the momentum going and got it, you're pushing it, it's easier to keep that car going than it's like, okay, I want to take a break and stop and then have to restart again. So it's really no different with your business principles. Like, just keep on keeping on. The actions might look a little bit different depending on the season of your career, of your life. But the most important thing is to stopping. So many docs, they just stop, and then they wonder why things, they have a little bit of success. Like, hey, dude, that's working. I'm feeling good. I got money in the bank account. I have new patients coming in. My volume's where I want it to be. And then they pull off the things that they were doing. They got them there. Like, what the heck happened? Now that's not working. Well, no, it still works. You just stop doing the things that you needed. You stop doing your advanced spinal care classes. You stop training your team. You stopped communicating. You stopped marketing. Like, you just pulled back on all the things because you got a little bit comfortable. And that comfort leads to complacency, and we know that complacency kills. And so it's just important to make sure that you keep on keeping on to drive those desired outcomes over time.
Absolutely. So now I want to go back to where I promised I would. Tell me about this. Tell me about this thing called ChiroFEST.
Yeah, man, it's a selfish seminar. I would tell you that.
Tell me more.
Meaning, it's not I'm not retiring from it, but I want, my kids' to know chiropractic the way that I know chiropractic. And so our tagline from day one has been honor the past, preserve the future. And so we bring in, 20 to 22 speakers over 2 days, just science, art, and philosophy. And so we, firing the troops up, keeping, this year our tagline is Rise Up. So our theme is Rise Up. And so it's, it's really, again, selfish in the sense that I want, principled chiropractic to be around for decades, and decades and decades and decades. And so it's a passion project, but it's worth it, because every year I get docs are like, man, it helps keep me engaged, keeps me on focus. Again, connected with like-minded folks. What we do is not easy. And, I would tell young doctors out there and old ones, old practitioners as well, or not old, but seasoned practitioners as well. It's super important that you surround yourself regularly with like-minded folks to keep your energy up, to keep you focused and keep you passionate about what we do. Because being a chiropractor is not for the faint at heart or the passive at skin. And so it's, being around those other folks is encouragement to help you keep on keeping on, as I said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, but every time you save a life, every time you help somebody get back on track, it's like, oh, that's why we do what we do.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So just to get the history. Now, how many years have you been doing ChiroFEST?
This is your 15 or 16. Yeah,
okay.
So it's a hot minute. Yeah. So we'll have, last year we had, 650 registrations last year. Mm-hmm. We'll have 50 exhibitors, again, 20 some speakers. So it's a big venue. Truthfully, it stimulated, a lot of folks that are out there listening that probably were familiar with Billy D's Cal Jam. And I had been running a monthly philosophy group in my area, and attended Bill's first Cal Jam. I'm like, brother, let's do a Cal Jam North 6 months apart. And Billy tells us from stage as well. And I was like, when he speaks at my events, and he's like, nope, Paul, I'm still growing. I'm still doing my thing. You go do you. And I'm like, all right, dude. And so that's how ChiroFEST was birthed.
So, and if someone wants to come to ChiroFEST, how do they find it?
ChiroFEST.org. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's go back to 15-ish years when you did the first ChiroFEST. I know it wasn't as big and magnificent as last year's, and this year's is going to be. But tell me about that first one. How many people were there? What did that look like?
Man, it was a special event, and that is talked about frequently. So we actually hosted it on when I first got the vision, I'm like, I'm going to do this old school Lyceum like DJ under a tent, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was actually on a patient's property. He had several acres, and so we rented a giant tent, put up the tent, put in a bunch of chairs, had the red carpet for our speakers and the stage. And so that one we had just about a little over 100 folks. Docs DC showed up at that one. The Pacific Northwest, weather is unpredictable. Usually August, September is our best season in regards to weather of the year, and it poured down rain.
Oh, no.
And so we had to pivot mid morning, and I sent my wife and my team after some, went to the rental place and got some space heaters to keep everybody warm. But it was memorable. I had, at that first one, I had Russ Rosen, I had Fred Schofield, I had Dave Jackson, I had Randy Bays, a buddy of mine up Northwest, who has the longest standing philosophy forum or philosophy group, 35 or 40 years in. Who else I have? I had Lyle Koja, Matt Hubbard. Anyhow, it was a phenomenal event year one. So it was great.
And you know what else you had? You had vision. And you reverse engineered it, and you took massive action steps to get it done and keep it growing.
Yep. You are right.
All right. I love it. All right. So I got to switch gears, and thank you for giving me that peek into ChiroFEST. So got to ask you a question that I ask everybody that I get to speak to.
All right.
So is it possible for a young doc who's just getting out of school now, or a doc who's been in practice for a while but just hasn't found success yet, hasn't been able to create it for whatever reason, is it still possible in today's world to create massive success starting now?
1,000%. I actually think in some senses it might be easier today as folks are waking up to who we are and how we can help them. Mm-hmm. Especially, RFK is a big fan and advocate of what we do. And so I think today, personally, I think it brings different challenges than it did in 1997. Mm-hmm. But I 100% believe that the docs that are on purpose, on point, and communicating that purpose to their community, 100% can crush it right now in their career. Man,
and I couldn't agree with you more. I went into practice in 1990. And, the word chiropractor was speaking dirty if it came out of a medical doctor's mouth.
100%.
And it just isn't that way anymore. Thank God. Or a whole lot less. We'll say that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not perfect,
right,
but we are more understood and received, quote unquote.
Exactly.
Than in the 90s. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you another question then. Again, switching gears again.
Yeah.
How do you define business success?
Man, I really think that's an individual thing for me. Honestly, truthfully, if I'm transparent, that success evolved and changed as I grew as a practitioner and as a business owner. My early career, again, I had targets and benchmarks that I wanted to hit by a certain time frame in my life. But early in my career, it was as for lack of better terms, I was just looking at my PVs and was less in tune with my margins. And, then that ran into some problems down the road.
Yeah.
And then became a better steward of my finances and pivoted on some things and got in better exchange. And then looked at margins, so that making sure that I was profitable. And I think that's the unfortunate mistake, those chiropractors that want to get out and just serve for the sake of serving, give for the sake of giving, and love for the sake of loving, which we all should do. Mm-hmm. But we also have to be mindful of our business margins and AKA profit margins, and not end up, it's a sad state when I talk to docs that are 30 plus years in, and we have such a beautiful thing to offer humanity and help humanity, live an abundant, vibrant, healthy lifestyle. And then, there's the unfortunate, I don't know if it's the majority, but there's more than there should be chiropractors that are 30 plus years into their career and don't have, they're not themselves personally operating out of abundance. They still have liabilities and obligations and having to go to the office instead of getting to go to the office.
Exactly.
And serve, and so really, my maturity as a business owner in regards to my margins and profitability matured and grew as I did over my career. So yeah,
sure, right.
So I think success changes.
Right. The just to piggyback on that, the purpose of being a chiropractor is not to make a ton of money. The purpose is to help individual people who desperately need, deserve, and want to be healthier and live a healthy lifestyle. And and I believe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, I believe when you serve from abundance, I just want to help these people. Well, okay, there's the laws of the universe and the laws of fair exchange. So you're helping them. You have to charge a fair fee. And the money just stacks up, frankly.
It does. It certainly does.
So,
yeah.
All right.
So, I am 1,000% agree. Yay and amen.
All right. So we're starting to run short on time. I got to ask a totally different question now.
Uh-huh.
At this stage of your life, how do you define personal success?
And right now with what I'm doing, I teach and operate out of, 5 foundations: faith, fitness, finance, family, and fun. And so really I'm every day evaluating those 5 foundations and making sure that I'm putting energy and intention into each one of those. And so obviously my faith with my quiet time and personal development, my fitness, again, it's our responsibility. We've been given one opportunity to take care of this body. And so making sure that I'm being attuned and being a good steward of what I've been given. My family, connecting with my bride and my kids regularly, my finances, being a good steward of that, and having fun. And then right now for me, my biggest fulfillment and mission is helping other docs, incorporate those foundations into their life so that they become the best version of themselves.
Man, I love that, Paul. So if somebody has listened to this entire interview and they think, man, you know what? This guy, Paul Reed, knows what he's talking about, but I don't even know where to start. What would you say to the doc that has drawn the line in the sand and says, all right, I'm going to take the step. I'm going to be successful. What's the first thing they need to do?
Honestly, if they know where they're at, one is back to what we said is get vision of where you want to go. And then I, personally am a fan of mentors. And so find yourself a mentor that you align with. Again, different people align with different folks. And so go out and speak and interview and talk to somebody, multiple somebodies, and see who you align with the most to get the support to shorten your Rolodex. I have had a coach or 2 or 3 at any one time throughout my entire career. It's just important as we go through. They help us see our blind spots so that you can pivot and work through those things at a shorter learning curve. And so once you got your vision, man, find somebody that can help you with that vision to expedite your success and pour some fuel on it so that you can fly. So.
Wow. Dr. Paul Reed, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom, and sharing your perspective, telling us all about ChiroFEST. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you and do this interview with you.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate you having on me, and it's an honor to serve your tribe, bud. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. And that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.